The Pro Show is brought to you by Rockin' Media and our proprietary Flash HDR photo process, providing you with the best, most realistic photos of your property. See the difference at rockinmedia.com. Welcome to the Pro Show. Hi, I'm Rick Mackley from Rockin' Media, and we have another great show for you today. We have some top agents from Coldwell Banker to talk to you about different items like what's going on in the market, days on market, what does that mean relative to whether you're a buyer or whether you're a seller. We're also going to be talking about the pros and cons of the pricing structures, whether you should price your home high, price it low. Obviously, Goldilocks would be best. And then inspection objections. How do you handle those? How does it work? Finally, we'll be showing you some great properties for sale. That's next on the Pro Show. Well, welcome everybody. We are here with three amazing Coldwell Banker agents. To my left is Lori Delaney from the North Metro area. Hi, Lori. And right below me is Renee Cohen from the Global Luxury Office. Hi, Renee. And Debbie Haining from the South Office. Good morning.
Hi, Rick.
Hi, everyone. Well, I'm glad everybody could join us today. We've got a great show. So today I want to talk about a couple of items, and these are from the August stats, and these have to do with price cuts and days on market. And if you look at the price cuts, there haven't been that many relative to, say, 22, where it seemed like everybody was still a little bit overshooting the runway as far as what they thought their home was worth. And then also, in the same note, the days on market have climbed, and this is why I think everybody thinks the market has changed so much, because if you look for the past 7 years, it's a little bit higher at 48 days than it has been over the course of the last 7 years, but it's this number down here in 21 where it was 18 days on market. And so I'm not sure you guys have ever been on a freeway where you've been driving for like 75 miles an hour, and then all of a sudden you get off and you're on a city street going 25 miles an hour, and it feels like you're literally standing still. And I think that's kind of what we're still experiencing from the right in the middle and toward the end of the pandemic. And I'm just wondering, if I'm looking to put my house on the market or even buy in this market, what are you telling your buyers at this point? Renee, what are you telling them?
Well, I'm telling my buyers that we really have to pay attention to the statistics in the neighborhood itself that they're looking in. Denver's a very neighborhood-specific market, and so while one neighborhood may be flailing a little bit in terms of days on the market and what prices are doing, other neighborhoods are still seeing multiple offer situations and things going very quickly. So the statistics really inform, how quickly something might go under contract, and that gives us a lot of information about how we would have to structure an offer.
So all markets aren't just local, or all real estate isn't just local, it's hyper-local in a lot of ways.
It really is. It is.
Debbie, what are you telling buyers?
I'm telling them to be patient, that they don't have to jump on the homes as soon as they see them and write an offer that night. They usually have a little time to look at it. You can see how many days on market it's been sitting there, how long, and you can usually make a pretty good decision based on that.
That makes a lot of sense. Lori?
I actually think, in addition to being neighborhood specific, like Renee mentioned, it's property specific. I think there still are some properties that are like one level ranches in great neighborhoods that have been fully renovated, that you still do have to, get in there quickly and respond quickly. While the overall pace and velocity of the market has slowed, which is really nice, actually, a nicer environment for the buyers to shop in, because they have a little bit of breathing room and they're not up against 30 offers. They might be up against one, though, and it only takes one to lose a property of their choice. So I'm telling them we have to really watch the particular property and what's going on with that property in addition to the neighborhood.
And I think it probably
and be responsive.
is also the same from your seller side, that they probably have to have a little more patience than what they expected from even a couple of years ago, right, Debbie?
Yeah, I just put a home on the market 6 days ago, and they called me over the weekend and are starting to panic. And do we need to change the price? What do we need to do?
So 6 days, huh? How about you, Renee? What are you saying?
Yeah, I think, sellers need to understand that it's not the same market we were in a couple of years ago where things were flying off the shelves really, really quickly. They do need to be patient. And again, I mean, if we look at the statistics in their specific neighborhood and days on market is 30, we have to pay attention to that. It's not a guarantee that we're going to get offers immediately. The other statistic that's really important to look at is the number of showings that a house gets on average before it goes past. Showings that may happen in one weekend, it may happen in a month. We don't know, but so if we can look at the statistics and see that we're in line with what's going on in the neighborhood, that gives them a little bit of peace of mind.
That's great. So it sounds like we're just kind of in a more balanced market, but you have to be really sensitive to what's going on locally. And I think probably the expectations are something you're setting up front as you look through the market, but then also you're probably finding that as well, that you got to be ready to react. Is that right, Debbie?
Absolutely. If you find your perfect home, write an offer, go for it.
Okay. And Lori, you actually have a listing that was on the market very short amount of time. So it sounds like you may want to be one of those examples where the neighbors may be looking at your listing and saying, well, there's one under contract in the first weekend. So that probably sets the expectation a little differently for the surrounding neighbors who might be on the market as well, right?
Yeah, and actually, it's funny that you should mention that particular one. First of all, it was a ranch, one level, highly desirable neighborhood, and we priced it well from the start, not too low, but a little bit under. I always tell my sellers, if you err, it's better to err pricing it too low than too high and not overshoot the market, but attract the maximum number of buyers, which we did. And it actually was not a multiple offer situation, but they didn't want to lose it. So they came in over 3% above list. And it was the neighbors. It was the neighbors' parents who ended up, they weren't even planning on moving. And they saw it and they're like, I want to be near my grandkids. And the grandkids are like, hey, if we run away, we're going to be closer to grandparents, be next door. That'll be awesome. Anyway, and so it was kind of crazy. The other thing I was going to say is one thing I tell my buyers, especially if they have a home to sell, is that, first of all, let me come see your home. Is it market ready? And let's see if we can get you qualified non-contingently, meaning that you don't have to sell your home in order to submit an offer. Because while sellers are considering contingent offers in this market, if that's all they get, if they're up against one non-contingent offer, they'll lose the home that they want. So that's what I am trying to do. And then I say, hey, it's still a great time right now to sell your home with everything in full bloom. But we just have to price it well from the start. And so I think that's another thing to consider.
Well, that takes us into our next section. Very nice segue, Lori. The pros and cons of pricing and how you should price your home. And obviously the best thing is to listen to these professionals about how you should price the home, but the market really sets the price. So let's start with pricing it high. And what are the pros and cons of pricing the home high? What do you say, Renee?
Well, I think pricing high is really risky. I think it depends upon what the seller's tolerance for risk is and how quickly they need to get to where they want to go next. Pricing high, to test the market, we hear that a lot. The majority of buyers that are going to come through that are interested in your home are going to come through at the beginning of when you're listing. And if you're priced too high, you may lose them. So I think that's a really big con for pricing high.
Debbie, if you're looking to sell and you're priced high and it doesn't sell at that, don't you run the risk of chasing the market too?
Absolutely. Um, Most of the buyers come out at the beginning as soon as it hits the market because they're watching that area and or they have searches set up and they find out that your house is on the market. They want to be the first one to get out there and look at it. And if you're priced too high, then you lose a lot of those people. Pricing it even a little lower, I find that if you're just a little bit under, it leads itself to a more multiple offer situation. If you're priced a little lower and you've been on the market for a little while and you get one offer, then you had it right where it needed to be. I don't think there's really a risk with pricing it just a little bit under.
So, Lori, what about chasing or not hitting the market and at the right point, and somebody as a buyer might not even see your home because you priced it too high, online at least?
But you have a greater probability, as Debbie said, to attract a multiple offer situation if you price it lower, and then attracting also the maximum number of buyers. The other thing is, at this point in juncture in the market, there's a little less runway left, so it's almost more critical now for you to price it right from the start because you just don't have enough runway until the snow flies, of the primary selling season, because once we hit Thanksgiving, people get pretty focused and concentrating on holidays. So the way I look at it, we have a shorter runway. So very, very important. I think the showing traffic is really indicative. And honestly, I do tell it this time of year. I tell my sellers, it's not a perfect science, but we can look at the data and we can kind of extrapolate what we think the market value is. But until we actually see that showing traffic, we're not going to know 100% or have an open house and get comments. And so I tell them, after like a week to 10 days, depending on the price range, we have to really be cognizant. If we haven't had any showings in a week to 10 days, even though, they say it takes 14 or 46 days to go to contract, we may want to take a slight price adjustment. The other thing I say is, buyers are approved every $25,000. And so I usually try to stay within a lender breakpoint, being that like if we're at 800, let's go to 775 and then in addition to that, if you can be the best, instead of stretching to get into the next lender breakpoint, if you can be the best looking home in that price range, then you compete really well. And at that point, people come in and they don't say as many negative comments and that you've hit the market value.
And what about pricing it too low, Renee? Or if you want to add to that?
I was going to add to that I think it's important that sellers not get attached to the price. They pick the number that they start with, but the buyers are the ones that ultimately determine what the price will be. And I find when sellers get attached to a certain number, they're less likely to want to deviate from that number. And, they're stuck where they are. And that's really a hard thing for them to get and a hard thing for them to move past. And so, Rick, what was your next question?
Too low. Pricing it too low. What are the pros and cons of that?
I don't know. I agree with Debbie and Lori. I think that if you're going to err in pricing, erring on the side of too low is your better bet. I think that's the pro for sure. The con is that, like Debbie mentioned, if you in your mind are pricing it too low to start and you only get one offer, that's really where the market is. But I don't think pricing it too low is a con at all, because either you're going to get multiple offers or you're going to sell right where you are, which is what market value is.
So, Debbie, as long as you're happy with it, if I'm happy with the price that we got, we have a win, correct?
Yes. And, another thing that really matters is your time frame and your reason for selling. If you've got another house sitting there and you need to sell quickly, or you're being transferred or something like that, and then you say, well, I want to get the most money I possibly can because the house down the street got that, that's often a mistake, because you've got to look at your own reason for selling.
That makes a lot of sense. And Lori, I'm just, I guess my biggest concern is, man, we got one offer. Should I not accept it if it's too low?
Well, you always have the option of countering, but I always tell my sellers, you could counter or you can accept this. But generally speaking, in my past experience, the first offer is usually the best if you consider all of its terms, the dates, the deadlines, the closing, the type of loan, how much money they're putting down. So I really ask them to think twice about, how much they're going to counter. I also tell a couple, before we even start this process and launch your listing active, you guys need to be on the same page with what's the minimum amount that you will take, because once we get an offer, we only have 24 hours to respond. And the other thing I was going to say is there's really no such thing as pricing it too low unless it's extremely low into a way another market, because if it's within 1 to 3%, the market it's going to meet the market. So your home will end up selling for what it is. Even if you don't attract a multiple offer situation, you will get an offer that's above your list price if that's what the market will bear for that home in that neighborhood.
And Debbie, isn't that why even when it's under pending that you'll take multiple offers? Because obviously not every contract closes for lots of different reasons, but maybe you'll find a different one. But I can't change my mind with the first one if they don't bow out, correct?
Correct. And, I often keep the home in with the ability to continue showings for a backup offer, because you never know what the buyer's going to do. And if you have a written backup offer that goes into place right as the first one falls through, I mean, you can't be in a better position because, the fear of losing this buyer and then, oh no, we have to put it back on the market and start all over again. That's eliminated. And that's a very good idea. I've had the second offer come in and take the house on several occasions.
So it's always good and then you can really see if the second offer comes in close to what your first one was, then you're probably hitting the market just right, Renee?
Yeah, I mean, if you keep it available for showings after you go pending and you get another offer, or you have multiple offers initially and another offer wants to put themselves into backup position, you do have validation that your pricing strategy was correct.
Beautiful thing about having a backup when you go under contract is, for some reason, if they lose their job or the inspection doesn't go well, you can turn to that backup while you're still under contract status and see if they would like to slip into first position. And if they do, you don't have to change the status, which when you change the status from active to under contract back to active, you get a myriad of questions. It's almost like people like, what happened with that home? And so that's the biggest pro of having a backup when you go under contract.
So they slip in first position if the other one drops out. It's not like they can just take over and go, oh, this one's better at this point. The first contract that you sign, you're under contract until they find a reason to either close or not go under, correct? Or not go, stick with the contract, correct?
Yeah, as soon as they terminate, then if you have an official written backup offer, this happened to me actually, then they have the people in the backup position, you contact, and they could be there or they might have found something else. If they're still there, then you ask them, they get the first right of refusal, and then their contract slips into first position if they still want the home.
Oh, so then it just stays under pending at that point.
Correct.
Well, that sounds good. I mean, it sounds like in this market where we're a little more balanced, it's disappointing I'm not getting 50 grand over asking, but it's also means that we're back to a market where buyers can find the right home and homeowners are able to get what realistically their price of the home probably should have been at that time. Would everybody agree? I see a lot of nodding heads.
Absolutely.
Yes, sure.
Any other pros and cons or thoughts on pricing?
Well, I have one other comment.
Sure.
I think it's because of the balanced market. I think it's the best time, one of the best times to have a home to sell and then also buy a home at the same time, because you can do both relatively well versus when we had a seller's market, you sell really well, but then it's really kind of challenging to buy. If it's a buyer's market, you buy really well and it's a little challenging to sell. But right now we have a very balanced market. The pace of the market has slowed so that people can think before they make a decision. And I think it's the best of both worlds right now.
I think one of the downsides as I'm thinking about this to, going with a lower amount is, we're going to get into probably some inspection objections that I'm going to have to come up with some money to fix. And if I'm already at my lowest number, that could be a negative, right, Renee?
Potentially, yes, but the question becomes, how important is it to you to sell? Do you want to, do you need to move? Are you being relocated? Like, what's going on that's prompting this move in the first place? And that, sellers at this point have a lot of equity in their home typically, so they may not net as much as they expected to if there's inspection surprises that come up, but they're going to have to take care of them either for the buyer that they have or for the next buyer that they get. And the next buyer that they get is going to do their own inspection and come up with an additional list of things that they would like to have fixed already on top of what you're going to have to tell them at the as to why this first contract fell. So sellers, yes, they are going to have to be prepared to do more things at inspection. If they're lucky, it's more along the lines of a concession or a price reduction as opposed to actual contracted repairs.
Well, it's kind of nice to be in a balanced market. I guess if I was looking for a home, this would be a great time to get out and look because I can find and I don't have to make a snap decision. And if I'm a homeowner, I'm probably going to find somebody. It just might take a little bit longer depending on my price point, location, and other elements that we've talked about today. So this week, I'm talking with Nancy Alexander again from Guaranteed Rate Affinity about how to be a good credit borrower so you can get a good rate on your mortgages. And one of the things that's really important are credit score, or is your credit score. So we're going to talk credit scores today, and then we'll talk a little bit more specifics about what can adversely affect that next week. So hi, Nancy.
Hey, Rick, how are you?
I'm doing well. So the credit score is really important, I assume, for your interest rate, right? For all borrowers?
You're right. And I don't know that I would say all borrowers. Like conventional money, no question. Conventional money prices. And when I speak of pricing, I mean interest rate given is based on credit, right? So the highest credit score we can get as a consumer in the mortgage industry is 850. When you drop below 760, that's your first tier. 740 is your next tier. 700, 680, 660, then it starts to go in 20% increments. And each of those increments will affect the interest rate that you're being quoted.
How much do you find that it affects it? So like we go from one section to the next, or one break point to the next.
That's a good question.
Quarter point?
760 to say 720 without a doubt. Quarter point, maybe even 3/8 of a point, depending on the market and that particular day. You're probably, you could easily say 1/8 of a point for every 20 basis points that you're dropping in credit score. 760 to 740, 720. Once you get below the 700s, you're going to see 3/8 to 0.5% difference in rate than if you were at the 740 or higher. 760 is a measurement of a credit score because of the mortgage insurance. Okay. So if you want to get the lowest mortgage insurance, you want that. And Rick, when we speak credit scores, it's right, when I'm pulling credit, I'm pulling all three credit scores. So you're pulling from Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. We're throwing out the high, we're throwing out the low. We're focused on the mid score of that borrower.
And what's the high? I mean, you can do an 800 or 820. Does that matter? Or once you get above the 760, you're good?
It doesn't. Once you get above that 760, if you're playing in jumbo money, the 780 will be a nice mark. You might see 1/8 of a point difference. Again, it's really based on the market that is happening on that particular day, whether you're going to see that 1/8 of a point difference. And remember, your credit, your interest rate, and your loan to value are all intertwined, right? So if your 680 credit score 5% down, you're going to see a very different rate than somebody that's at a 760 credit score and putting 20% down. You could see 3/8 of a point difference.
And of course, if you've got a lower credit score, it makes sense you're not as credit worthy, but that means your rate's going to be higher. That means your payments are going to be higher, which makes you less likely to be able to qualify for that loan, correct? So in theory, you could have a super low credit score, but by the time you do the numbers, it doesn't work, correct?
That's right, because it affects your debt to income. The higher the credit, right? It's an expense, just like if we were to add a piece of debt to your scenario, you would then be adding more debt, which then would give you a less likelihood of qualification.
And what about FHA, VA? How are those looked at versus
Good question. So
conventional?
Any government loan, FHA, VA, USDA, doesn't run on credit the way that conventional or jumbo does. So a 620, and really, I'm going to say a 640 and better, you can go all the way down to a 580 credit score with a government loan, but you're going to get hit in rate, right? From that 580 to that 640. Once you hit 640 for your median score, all the way up to the 850, right? The high that you can go, your interest rate is the same. So you have a 760, it's going to be the same as a 660, is going to be the same as your 720, etc.
Okay, so obviously those government-backed loans, it's less important, but it does affect your ratios. So then,
It does. Yeah.
because you're going to have to still pay a higher rate, correct or not? Is that what you're saying?
Correct. If your credit score is in that 580, right, you can still get the loan done on that FHA loan, but your interest rate is going to be higher because you're providing a greater credit risk to the lender because of the lower score.
Awesome.
So your interest rate is higher.
Well, that's good information. And next week, we are going to talk about one of the key factors that can really mess up your credit score. So you want to stay tuned for that. And if you wish to get a hold of Nancy, you can reach her at the phone number here on the screen. And I appreciate your time again today, Nancy, and look forward to seeing you next week. So when we're talking about marketing a property, we often think about open houses. We think about, the flyers that go in front of the house. But a big part of what goes on today when you're marketing a property is social media marketing. So, Debbie, what do you do to market a property?
I try to get it out on social media in every way possible. We have your video, we have, walkthroughs, drones, every aspect from there. And then we put that out on all of the different social media channels, along with print marketing and and sometimes we put it out on multiple times with different parts of the home that we're showing, or, just different stories about the home. So there's a lot of things to go through.
And Lori, what are you doing?
Well, I always suggest to the seller to go to utilize the coming soon capability, because that's part of my marketing strategy. They can be coming soon for 7 days, especially right now in the shorter market ahead of us. If they're getting their home market ready, I usually post as soon as we get a coming soon sign in the yard. I post it on every social media channel that they're coming soon. And then the day before the open house, which is like a week later, usually let's say it'll be coming soon Thursday, it'll be active the following Wednesday, and then that following Saturday is an open house. So I will post an open house advertisement on every social media channel Thursday, and then again Saturday morning. And so that just is really helpful. And then once it goes under contract, I post it again. And then once it is sold, I post it again on all the social media channels. So for each one of my properties. And then also, if I get any of my buyers under contract, I will post those under contracts, and then once they close.
And Renee, what channels are you using? What social media platforms?
Most of the time, it's usually LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. Those are the big ones. There's others out there, but the ones that I find most beneficial are those three.
And doesn't Coldwell Banker do some social media marketing for you as well, through Listing Concierge? Is that something that also takes place outside of what you're doing? Renee? Or
Yes, they do. They do. They have they've got their own channels and places that they post things for us. And really the whole idea behind it is we know that buyers are online, we know that sellers are online, and we have to capture that audience before anybody goes into a home. So the pictures have to be amazing, the content has to be amazing, the variety of what we're posting has to be amazing in order to capture those people to get them through.
And Debbie, Lori, go ahead.
I was just going to piggyback off of that through Listing Concierge, you can order a property website, and then it's posted on its own YouTube channel, which is highly, highly, highly effective with as popular as YouTube is becoming.
And Debbie, how often do you change out your social media content?
I add to it, you know, a couple times a week, and it just continues to grow. So if somebody's looking back, they can get a lot of information on that property. YouTube, I use a lot. And if you go in there to the home specific channel, you can see everything about it. So I think it's a very effective way.
And do you get responses, Renee, from your social media, or do you keep track of where you're getting your buyers from?
Yeah, I do keep track of where I'm getting my buyers from. I do hear people say, "Oh, I saw this on Facebook," or "I saw this on LinkedIn that you posted," and things like that. It's great. You know, it's good for our buyers and sellers. It's also good for us in terms of our, furthering our expertise and our credibility out there. So it's good to see that, yes, we might not, sell every single house from a social media post, but having that presence is really important.
It's one of the many legs in a marketing stool, and it's not just probably a three-legged stool. It probably has 12. So getting to the finish line really requires that you have this big hurdle. It's called inspection objection. So you do an inspection, and all of a sudden, you get a list back from your potential buyer, and I assume one of the options is you just go ahead and accept them all because they're all small things and you can take care of it. But obviously, there are going to be times when that may not be the case. So let's talk about strategies as a homeowner for inspection objections. Renee, why don't you start us out?
So, well, I think the strategy starts even before they list the house. I think it's important if they know of anything that is deficient or not working well, or things they've been putting off in terms of repairs, to go ahead and take care of them, because we want to make as many things as possible non-issues. And also, if buyers discover them at inspection, they are likely going to overblow the amount that it's actually going to take to fix them. So the more that they can take care of ahead of time, the better.
So if they find something and they overblow it, you're saying the buyers might say what? That it's costs X and they want to take that off the price, or what?
They want, yeah. So, the price of a repair in a buyer's mind is going to be a lot greater than the price of a repair in a seller's mind. And we want to minimize as many opportunities for having to meet in the middle as we possibly can. So if sellers know of something that's not working, they should just fix it ahead of time so that it becomes a non-issue.
Lori, what do you get a report? Does the buyer get the report? I mean, the seller get the report? How does that work? I don't even know.
It's optional. The buyers want to include the report with their inspection objection issues. 9 times out of 10, I feel like they do include it because they want to show you all the items they're not asking for. But I will tell you, I tell my sellers, let's say they have a repair on there for, let's say, a radon mitigation system, and my people are like, oh, that's too expensive, I don't want to do that. Well, if that's a health and safety issue and those buyers happen to terminate, the next buyers that come along, now that we have the inspection report, we have to disclose what, we know. And so it's kind of like fix it now or fix it later. They're still under the gun for, fixing those health and safety issues or structural or whatever the case might be.
And Debbie, if I don't have a health and safety issue that's on the report, do you have to still disclose that?
I would disclose it.
Okay.
Because you're going to find out later. But I think it's more important at the beginning to do your own inspection. And then that way you can find the items that are going to come up and take care of them so that when the house hits the market, all of those things are addressed. And sometimes if you've got a furnace that's getting old, you can always offer a home warranty that would kick in if the furnace goes out. A lot of times people like that because it not only covers the furnace that you're concerned about, but many other items. And it's less expensive than replacing a furnace that might be just fine. It's just old.
So, Renee, what are the options? They can, the buyer can say, take this amount off or fix it, or what are the options that the seller has or is given, or is it up to the buyer?
So it's really up to the buyer and the seller as to what they would like to do. Many buyers, when they write an inspection objection, they're going to ask for sellers to fix things by licensed contractors. And, sellers want to make this as easy as possible on them, and they don't want to have to worry about hiring contractors. And buyers may also want to choose their own contractors after closing to work on certain things. So sellers have the option of offering a concession if a lender will allow it, and many lenders will allow up to 3% of the purchase price or something like that. In the form of a concession. You can also offer to reduce the price, or you could, depending upon what the issues are, you can take care of them before closing. There are some things that cannot, that either have to be done before closing or have to be put into escrow for the buyer to take care of after closing. The lender becomes a really important piece of this process because there are things that lenders will and will not allow as far as escrows and inspection items.
And Lori?
Well, I was just going to say it really also largely depends on, is it a cash transaction or is there a loan involved? Because if it's a cash transaction and there's a number of items, I always recommend, conversing with the buyer's agent and seeing what their buyers are willing to accept. But in many cases, you just have to take a reduction on the price. If it's a cash situation and your sellers are not in a position, maybe they're out of state or whatever, to fix or, to handle all of those items. So you can either reduce the price or you could offer a concession. The thing I do as a buyer's agent is note the section of the inspection report and try to make it as easy as possible for the sellers to handle those items, so they're not just like at a loss and overwhelmed when they get that list. And so you have a higher probability of them handling those issues if you lay it all out and send over those pictures to the items that you're asking for and that kind of thing.
Isn't timing an issue, Debbie, relative to, okay, these 6 things might take 3 weeks, and I really want to be closed in 3 weeks. So isn't a concession a better option for that in that situation if the buyer's willing to take it?
Absolutely. There's some items that are going to drag out. A big one is the roof, depending on the time of year. Another one is replacing a window. That usually takes longer than the time you've got till closing. So you can either offer a concession or you can put those funds in escrow to be paid for later.
And do you find, Renee, that there are times when you feel like the buyer is just trying to get out?
Well, they do. That is their out. If they want to get out of the contracted inspection, they just terminate. They don't need to submit anything in terms of an inspection objection. An inspection objection signifies their willingness to move along in the process if they can work with the seller to get these things fixed. If they want out, they just terminate the contracted inspection and that's it. Sellers, on the other hand, can, if they would like the buyer to terminate because the seller has no ability to make that happen, they can say no to everything, hoping that the buyer will then walk away.
Gotcha. So it's kind of a little bit of a chess game and dance that everybody plays. So that's obviously then the inspection objection is a huge hurdle in the sale process. We say getting to the finish line, but now it looks like we're doing the hurdles. And on this week's rental report, we're talking what a property manager does, what you can expect, and specifically what Real Property Management does. And here from Real Property Management is Greg Batchelor. Hi, Greg.
Hey, Rick, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for joining me. So tell me, obviously you manage properties because it's in your name. What does that mean? What does that mean?
That's a great question. So when people call us, we often get asked that very question, and that can range on a number of things. So there's two primary types of services that are out in the marketplace, of which we offer both. One is called tenant placement services, and that's for an investor that is really looking to hire us to advertise the property, market the property, screen the tenants, do background checks, make sure that we're getting security deposit, lease signed, do move-in inspection, that kind of stuff. And then when that bundle of services all wraps up, then turn that tenant back over to the landlord, and the landlord then manages them moving forward. Again, that's called our tenant placement service. Then the other component, the other type of service out in the marketplace is what we call full management. And that's providing that same bundle of services that I just articulated, but then after we get that tenant placed, then it's taking on the day-to-day 24/7 full-time management. So we're the ones collecting the rents, posting notices when they're late, taking the maintenance phone calls 24/7, 365, assisting however we can with evictions should it arise. Doesn't happen very often. As a matter of fact, less than 2% of the time it does. But helping to navigate that with our clients, et cetera. So it's basically a bundle of services that allows an investor or a landlord the opportunity to be a more passive investor and enjoy the mailbox money, and we take on the day-to-day management of that property.
And what about from the tenant side? Do you do anything from that side where a tenant comes into you and says, "I'm looking for a great place," and you match them up, or how's that work?
Yeah, we do a lot of that, as a matter of fact. And our leasing team is out in the marketplace day in and day out doing that very thing. So somebody may call off of 1234 Main Street. They meet him at 1234 Main Street to go look at that property. They like it, but it's not the right one exactly. And then they articulate to our leasing team like, hey, here's where this one just fell a little bit short, or we need a bigger yard, or whatever the case may be. And then our leasing team would then at that point in the ballgame say, hey, since 1234 Main Street didn't work, let's try 4321 Main Street, which is 4 blocks over, whatever the case may be. And it does have more what you just described. And so we spend a lot of time working with tenants out in the marketplace, finding the home, addressing maintenance issues as they arise. We do what we call site visits 3 to 4 times a year, to where we're dropping by the property to make sure that there's no lease violations, no unauthorized pets, no unauthorized occupants, checking for some latent maintenance defects the tenants may not have spotted. Obviously, if there's a leak in the roof and it's dripping on your kitchen table, our telephone's going to ring, and we're going to be getting roofers over there to, address that. All of that said, tenants may not always look under the P-trap in the guest bathroom that hasn't been used for a couple of months, and so we're looking at all those things to make sure we can address them proactively versus reactively.
That's on your second option, where from your landlord side, where you're doing the full service.
Is.
And on both of the first two options for landlords, what do you do relative to, do you keep track of, this tenant signed in June, and then as we get toward May, following up with them, or is that something that the landlord's supposed to do?
Yeah, we take care of all that. So what we do is with any one of our tenants, we follow up with them 90 days before their lease is scheduled to end. And that's just to find out, hey, are you wanting to renew? Are you staying in the area? Are you going someplace else? Is this a home that you like? Are you going to be moving back to Kansas City, where you came from, et cetera? So we start that dialogue 90 days out. And then some of the tenants know right out of the gates, yes, I'm staying. No, I'm not staying. Or, you know what? Thanks for calling. Let us revisit this, and my partner and I should talk about it. My husband and I should talk about it, et cetera. And then off to the races we go from there.
And on the full service for the landlords, I'm not getting the call as the landlord at 2 a.m. when the roof is leaking. You guys are? Is that how it works?
Yep, it's exactly how it works. And as you might imagine, obviously we're coming into fall, and we're going to have some colder temperatures start kicking in. And so we have HVAC companies, for instance, when the furnace goes out and it's 9 degrees, we need to get that addressed. We need to get that addressed fast. And so we have after hours emergency HVAC technicians that will go out at 2 o'clock in the morning and take care of that, or a flooded basement, 2 o'clock in the morning, electrical issues, pipes that freeze, you name it. So the landlord gets to enjoy that benefit of being a passive investor. They get to sleep through the 2 a.m. call. We have an emergency maintenance hotline that is staffed 24/7, 365 through a call center that we utilize. And they're the ones taking those phone calls at 2 o'clock in the morning. They're up, they're working, they're ready to roll.
And it seems like you must have a whole network of contractors for lots of different things, snow removal, that sort of stuff as well.
We do. Yeah, we sure do.
Sure, great benefit.
It is a great benefit. Yes, we have, I think the other day I was talking to our maintenance team, but 76 or 78 different vendor relationships that we have in every category imaginable to try to help service the needs that could bubble up at any given property at any given time.
Well, that's great. I know that you love what you do and your team loves what they do, but you probably don't do this for free. So next week, let's talk about how you get compensated. How's that sound?
That sounds great, Rick. Looking forward to that conversation.
All right. We'll see you next week. Thanks. So the first property we're going to look at today is Debbie Haning's listing, and this is out in Aurora. Tell us about this property, Debbie.
So this home has got some very unique things about it. Number one, you have views of Quincy Reservoir. You back to open space, and there's a beautiful park-like area behind. The house itself is well maintained, and it looks great. But there's one thing that you're not going to find in many other condos, is it has 3 dedicated parking garages. These garages here, you will have 3 of them, plus a reserved space in front. It's kind of unusual, and currently we've got 2 renters renting the 2 garages, and that's something you could continue to do with them, or you can take them over as your own and use them for storage or parking your own vehicles. But I think it's just a wonderful situation, and I'm really excited to have this listing. Yeah,
it's great. It looks like having that backing to open space. Is it a corner unit?
It is.
It's a corner unit. So it's a 2-bed, 2-bath, 982 square feet. As of the time of this recording, it's at $299,000. And if you want to see this listing, give Debbie a call. I'm sure she'd love to show it to you. Thanks, Debbie. And we have another great home for sale. We briefly looked at this last week, but it was incoming soon, and now we have pictures. So, Lori, tell us about this home.
So this is a stunning custom home located in the exclusive Oak Ridge Estates area in Arvada. It offers 4 spacious bedrooms and 3.5 luxurious bathrooms across 3,778 finished square feet of living space between the finished basement and the above grade. It was built in 2011, and this home features high-end interior finishes, a gourmet kitchen with rich cabinetry, slab granite countertops, and a large kitchen island. The great room boasts expansive windows and a cozy fireplace, perfect for entertaining or relaxing. And the finished basement is an entertainer's dream, providing ample space for a family room, recreation area, and wet bar. So the property also includes an attached garage, side load, oversized 3-car garage, and beautifully landscaped yard for ideal outdoor activities. So come by and see that. I had an open house last Saturday. It was very, very busy, and probably do another one this Saturday. I just have to figure out the timing, probably be Saturday, 11 to 1. It's at 11968 West 66th Lane in Arvada, 80004.
Looks like it has a 5-piece primary bath, which is awesome, and a huge walk-in closet. That looks awesome.
It actually has 2 walk-in closets in the primary bedroom. Yes.
Why don't you say that again? It also has 2.
It also has 2 closets in the primary bedroom, and this home is listed for $1,021,000.
That's awesome. Thanks again, Lori. And if you want to see this outside of the open house, give Lori a call. I'm sure she'd love to show it to you. Well, this has been another great show. I appreciate all you ladies being on the show. These are real professional real estate agents, and I'm sure they would love to talk to you if you'd like to get further information about them and their business and how they can help you buy or sell real estate. So give them a call at the numbers here on the screen. And if you'd like to see more of The Pro Show, you can go to theproshow.com, where we have links to our podcasts, which can also be found on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify podcasts. So feel free to check those out, because there's a lot of great information from previous shows and, of course, on upcoming shows. Thanks again, everyone, for joining me today on the show.